Welcome to the All Out Leadership Podcast, hosted by Pastor Eric Lawson, where each episode is uniquely designed to help you live all out by bringing you practical leadership from a biblical perspective delivered in 10 minutes or less. So whether you're a business leader, serving in ministry, or simply looking to grow in your leadership, this podcast is for you. Before we dive into this week's topic, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and download the show notes at ericlawson.com/podcast. And while you're at it, feel free to share the content on social media. Now, let's join Pastor Eric for this week's conversation.
I find it interesting that right after Jesus talks about what it means to be great, and that is to be servant of all, and he pulls a child in their midst and says, hey, whoever's great needs to be like this child, and it's how we treat little people that truly determines whether someone is truly big or great or not in the economy of God. And then the Apostle John comes up with this, seems like completely out of nowhere statement. So I want to read this because this is consecutively what happens next. And now John answered in verse 38 of Mark chapter 9, "Teacher, we saw someone who does not follow us casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he does not follow us." But Jesus said, "Don't forbid him, for no one who does or works a miracle in my name can soon afterward speak evil of me. For whoever gives a cup of water to drink in my name will by no means lose his reward." And so I just find it so fascinating. Jesus is talking about little kids and, being a servant of all. And then John goes, "Oh, hey, by the way, there's a group of people. They're doing great things. It's in your name, but I told them to stop because they're not one of us. They're not part of our clique. They're not part of our group. They're not part of our denomination. They didn't go through our membership class or whatever." I like what Jesus defines as greatness. And remember, all this is in the context of greatness. So here's another definition of greatness. Great leaders think team, not territory. I'm going to say that again. Great leaders think team, not territory. Great is not just you, your clique, your little club, your little group, us four, and no more, whatever that is for you. Jesus looks at the totality of the Big C church, the Big C body of Christ, and he's thinking the whole. And what we tend to do is get these little silo mentalities that we measure our greatness by our own little group and us four. Hey, it's easy to feel great about yourself when you just measure yourself among your friends, because here's the thing about friends. You got to pick your friends, and chances are we always pick friends that make us feel better about ourselves. Rarely do we pick people that challenge us and stretch us and are smarter than us and better than us at a bunch of things because we want to become better. Because human nature is this: we always gravitate to the path of least resistance. And that's why God forces some friendships into our life that we wouldn't have chosen otherwise. But again, just like how Jesus is just redefining so many of our wrong paradigms. And he goes, look, guys, it's not about your little silo. It's not about your little group. There's going to be other people that are great, and they aren't necessarily part of your church. They might be church down the street. They might not be even in your same company. They might not be in your department, but that department down the hall, they're also doing great things. And so Jesus redefines greatness. It's team, not territory. And I love the statement, it's teams that win championships, not individuals. It's teams that win championships. And so just as you're walking as a Christian, as you are as leading maybe in churches, or maybe as you're leading in businesses, just don't be critical of other people because they're not in your group, in your clique, in your church, in your denomination. They don't do church the way you do it. They don't do the same song sets. They have guitars and we don't, or vice versa. And just the body of Christ is so divided on, the differences of methodology, when in reality we're for so many parts in agreement on the essential doctrines, but we've let these little differences divide us. And I think at the end of the day, Satan just wins that. And again, Jesus is saying, think team, not territory. And just know there's going to be people that, they're going to struggle to do it your company's way, the Mandalorian way, this is the way, Element way. And I go, that's okay. This church doesn't exist for everybody. In fact, our early slogan that we used a lot, it was this, people go, why Element Church? And we'd go, well, are you in your element? Oh, no, I hadn't thought of that. Have you ever been into a church and it just didn't feel like your element? Well, try Element, because it might be the right element. And along the way, there are people who come, or staff that have come, and they want to change the way we do church on, like every level. Well, no, that just means you're in the wrong element. It's okay to help us improve, but when you want to change everything about us, our DNA, our philosophy, our core of ministry, then I go, no, it's just the wrong element. You don't have to tolerate us. Just go somewhere else where God has called you to be. But we're not going to throw rocks at another church because they're not just like us. We're not going to throw rocks at another business just because they're not like us. Human nature just tends to think my little silo, my little area, and Jesus is helping us expand and broaden our blinders, so to speak, so that we can see the bigger picture and really think holistically. I also like the fact that Jesus just pointed out, and he just says, hey, whoever gives a cup of cold water to one of these little ones in my name, they will in no wise lose their reward. And I just, again, am encouraged by the fact that as we're thinking team, not territory, there's a lot of little things that you're doing inside of your team that nobody sees, nobody celebrates. But again, Jesus is pointing out, I see it, I notice it, and I will reward you. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, therefore we also, since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, the sin which so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. And it's just a reminder that Jesus is the only one who has the right to really redefine our stories and redefine our lives because he's the author and he's the finisher of our faith. So when I go to someone who's not like me, doesn't do things just like me, and I try to change the entirety of who they are, change their personality, change the way they do, church, change all their leadership styles, that's not fair because I'm not God and it's not my right to create other people in my image. We would really get a whole lot farther in life if we would stop to celebrate the differences in one another, the uniquenesses of other churches. I'm thankful that inside of our city of St. Louis, there is no other church just like Element. If we were all just like Element, then some of us wouldn't be needed. I'm grateful for the different variety of styles of churches and different ways pastors teach and different ways they worship, different expressions, but man, we're all worshiping Jesus and we're all about wanting to reach the lost. We're all about wanting to make disciples. We all have maybe a specific passion and focus, but that's how God made us and that's how God wired us. But we're all on the same team. We're all in the Big C church. So let's just keep that mentality that it's all about team and not just my individual territory. And this helps break down the silos. Silos creep up in every organization, us versus them. It's the IT versus the marketing department. No, we're all on the same team. And so let's just allow what Jesus calls greatness, and that is truly how we see and celebrate each other and team, not just our own little territory.
Thank you for joining us on the All Out Leadership Podcast. We hope you gained new biblical insight that challenged you to grow in your leadership. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, we would love your help in getting the content out farther. You can help by subscribing to the podcast at ericlawson.com/podcast and telling others about it. Next week, Pastor Eric will be back with another episode. So until then, we hope you have a great week being an all-out leader.